What is up, Serie fans and Stoppage Time fans? I'm your host, Cliff, and we have a very special guest today. One of my boys from the All Juve cast, Joe Cappuccino. How we doing, man?
I'm doing great, Cliff. How are you doing?
I'm feeling amazing. Although we didn't get the result as Juventus fans over the weekend, we won't talk about that because I don't want to depress myself.
Yeah.
But I'm doing really well. Just came back from a wonderful, beautiful Easter weekend. I hope you and everybody else had a great Easter weekend. If you celebrated, I had my nonni over for the weekend, so that was really nice. They just left today. I watched the matches yesterday with my nonno, which we'll talk about briefly in a few minutes. But to get some of the business end out of the way, we are sponsored by the great team at All UA Cast, as well as Striped Hearts Apparel. This, honestly, I got this, and I'm like, oh, this t-shirt's just gonna be one of those regular t-shirts. It's not gonna be super crazy. Honestly, it's so comfortable, and it makes me feel like I'm ripped because it's so form-fitting. It really feels great on me. It makes me feel like I've been doing like a few extra reps, you know. But nobody wants to see that. But super comfortable clothing. Highly, highly recommend. Joe's not wearing it. He's always wearing his typical tracksuit, which is also super stylish, which I can't blame him for. Um, but let's get into it, Joe. The first really match I wanted to get into was actually the action that started on Monday. We had Napoli, Roma. That game ended in a 1-1 draw. This was kind of a wild match because it kind of, in my opinion, I thought it had a draw written all over it or a Roma late win all written over it. A lot of yellows in this game. A lot of yellow cards given up for both sides. Really even though in possession, 49 for Napoli, 51 for Roma. The early goal on the penalty given to Lozano on the kind of the tackle on the foot in the box. I thought it was really obvious. We'll get your thoughts in a second. Lorenzo Insigne slots it home in the penalty. Cool as you like. And then late in the match, Stefan El Shaarawy, former Italian national team player, scores in the stoppage time. Funny enough, stoppage time being our show. I know, Joe. I'm just full of these puns. I'm just a very punny
Oh my
guy.
God. It
But
works though. It works.
it does work. It actually does work for this case. So give me your thoughts on this game, on the penalty, on the late winner. What were your thoughts on this one?
I mean, first of all, it was a clear penalty. So if there are any Roma crybabies out there, cry some more because it's a pen.
He shoved
Yeah,
him
that was
over, and he got his foot stepped on.
and you got his foot stepped on. There was I think it was Ibanez who fouled
Ibanya.
Lozano, and yeah, I mean, what are you going to do? It's a clear pen. There's no arguing that. Insigne is cool. You like just got it.
Yeah.
Um, Thoughts on the rest of the game? I mean, if you sometimes stats can lie a little bit. It was
Yeah.
pretty even, and I think I agree with what you said beforehand that this game just kind of had a draw written all over it, especially with Mourinho's men. They
Yeah.
always claw and fight and bite, scrape, and scratch to get a point. That's just the
Yeah.
kind of teams that he has. Um, but Napoli didn't overly threaten. They had a couple of prime opportunities, but then from what I saw, they had a lot of shots that were from range,
Yeah.
and Rui Patricio just kind of handled it, in fashion. Roma, I feel like never quite got into the next gear. Um, at least going into the final third of things, they certainly had some shots, but again, nothing too threatening until obviously Stefan El Shaarawy just comes up big in the dying moments, and that's pretty much it. People are calling out that Napoli are their title hope is done. I don't know if I completely believe
Yeah.
that yet, but this obviously sets them back
Yeah.
more than anything. So they're really going to need to regroup and rethink how to progress for the closing stages of this season. Like it's weird to think about. We don't have that many more games left, so
Yeah.
you got to make them count.
We're done in like a month. With the season basically a month and like maybe a couple days because it's done May 22nd, if I'm not
Mm-hmm.
mistaken. But for this one, you're right. It was absolutely a penalty, in my opinion. I don't think anybody can really complain about that. I think the only thing that I can note that Roma fans could have an argument against were was Patricio, not Patricio, when Meret came out and was made that sliding challenge on Zaniolo, and there was
Hmm.
significant contact. Yes, people say he got the ball, and then people say he slid through him, which it's really tough because when do you kind of let it go in terms of contact? Because obviously it's a contact sport, but at what point do you say, he got the ball, but then he went through the player? And in some situations they call it when they make contact going through the player, and sometimes they don't. Because this one Meta clearly caught Zaniolo after the play. And I think it impeded him from maybe making a play towards goal. Because if he doesn't get hit, say he goes around him, maybe he has a chance to score. I don't know.
Hmm.
But what do you think about that? Because it's a really interesting play for me.
I think if I remember correctly, I do remember seeing Meret slide in, and he got the ball. Um, but yeah, then that question of obstruction comes up. In my opinion, I think just judging by from what I remember seeing the replay, that ball is technically that's no longer in
In
Zaniolo's
play.
vicinity whatsoever
Yeah.
because Meret got to it first and got it out of play. So it's kind of just a cause and effect kind of thing. There was
Yeah.
no way that Zaniolo could get out of the way or that Meret could get out of the way in time for that to not be an issue. They were going to collide no matter what. But I wouldn't call it obstruction because the ball is gone. Like
Yeah.
that ball is out of there. It's no longer an issue whether or not Zaniolo had a shot on goal or an opportunity because that goal
Yeah.
is no longer there anymore. And it was pretty clear that Medek got there first.
Yeah.
It wasn't like some other times where we've seen attackers come in really close and then goalkeepers close the distance
And then
and
clip a player or
like
something like that.
clip the player. Like sometimes the attacker will try and dink the goalkeeper,
Yeah.
and the goalkeeper will have already like slid down and will have direct contact with the player.
Yeah.
That's a different situation. So we're not talking about the same thing here.
Okay.
That was I think that the call was right. I don't think that was worthy of a card, but I'm not perfect. I could be wrong on that.
I think that's a really great analysis of that play. And I think you broke it down really well. When you broke it down, I was like, wow, it sounds like Joe's like a former ref and he knows what he's talking about. Um, but
No,
do you
definitely
think it's
not.
more of a fact of the matter that we have now VAR and we can kind of closely more analyze these things in a slow motion perspective, as opposed to we used to see these bang bang plays in real time and we'd be like, oh, nobody could. You just have your first instinct, what you think, and you don't have a second, replay to review it and kind of deliberate and think about it. And now we kind of see the replay and we're like overthinking things. Oh, he made contact with him, but in the moment when you have those bang bang plays, um, the goalkeeper gets to the ball first, and then the player comes through in real time. The referee just has to make a decision and stick with it. But now that we have
Mm-hmm.
VAR, we kind of have more time to think about these things. Fans have more time to kind of maybe sometimes overanalyze things to a certain extent. Do you think that comes into play as well?
Oh, of course. It's just the nature of human beings. When you see something that doesn't please you, you're gonna obviously think about it more,
Yep.
or like what went wrong. At least that I'm guilty of doing that. But what confuses me is when VAR is used and when VAR is not used.
Yes.
I I'm still trying to grasp when referees use it, when they're able to use it, if there are certain rules or other regulations, like what's changed from before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's very, very confusing because there are certain situations where I'm sitting and I'm watching it and I'm like, yeah, they should probably look at on VAR for that, but
Yeah.
VAR doesn't end up getting called. I know that the referees on the field are in constant communication with, the people with VAR and stuff like that, and I just don't know if there's a whole lot of I don't want
Continuity.
to say there's certainly no continuity because every ref is going to look and interpret the rules differently, and
Yeah.
that's just, I think, a consequence of the game itself.
Yeah.
That's gonna happen until the end of time. And I think if you make if you change the rules for them to be tighter, I think that we would probably be screwing with the sport a little bit too much.
I agree.
Um, but then there's the argument saying that you could get better outcomes, but I'm not here to speculate on all of that. But what I will say is that it would certainly help if there was some kind of continuity, some kind of, I want to say, clear-cut rules on how VAR is supposed to be used. I'm sure that they have them, but
Maybe a
it
precedent that
certainly,
needs to be set.
not even a precedent. It's just there needs to be clear-cut rules in the
Okay.
rule book how VAR is used in the Italian league or in any league in general.
Okay.
It, and I'm sure that there are. I am confident that there are rules like that, but
Yeah.
how they're used on the field, it's not always evident that they're using the same rules. So that needs to be fixed. VAR's not
100%.
perfect, referees aren't perfect, but that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and we'll actually touch more on that later on. A fan, or I guess I shouldn't say fan, but a spectator's question on this. I like to think people are fans, but I don't want to, overstep my boundaries by calling someone a fan when I don't know exactly if they're a fan of the show. So I'll
Yeah.
say a peer, a spectator of the game, had a question that we'll refer to later. So the next match that we want to discuss, Atalanta Verona. Really, really interesting match. I was watching this match with my nonno, and I forgot to mention the last match. He's a Napoli fan, so he was very disappointed at the result of the last match that we discussed. I didn't harp too much on that one when I was talking to him about it because I didn't want to make him upset. Don't want to make your no upset. Definitely not. But for this match was Atalanta Verona. 56% possession for Atalanta, 44 for Verona. This was a really funny game to watch because I told you earlier before we went live that I was watching with my nonno, and he said, "Is this professional? This looks like a bunch of amateurs." He's like, "What team are these?" I said, "Atalanta Verona." He says, "Oh, yeah, because they're low in the table." And I said, "Well, it's not always the case." And then he goes on to say, "Looks like a bunch of scamortas running on the field." And if nobody knows what that is, scamorza is a type of Italian cheese. It's kind of like, what is it? Kind of similar to a provolone, but a lot milder. Kind of like an aged mozzarella,
Yeah,
I
pretty
think.
much. It's basically mozzarella. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
very close.
delicious. Delicious, by the way. So he said that, and I just started cracking up laughing. I think I tweeted it too. It was just absolutely hilarious in the moment. But on to the match. We had a goal early or not early, but in the 45th plus minutes stoppage time, actually, for the halftime. Federico Ceccarini scored. And then later on, it was an own goal in the 55th minute by Coop Miners. And then the last goal, and that was actually, it was funny to that point. My no even doubled down. He's like, "This looks like amateur again," seeing it go off with Coop Miners for the own goal. So I think it bounced off his knee or something. Really unfortunate goal that he gave up. And the last one was Giorgio Scalvini scores. I think he's a not a rookie per se, but he's a youth player. So he scored, but it was a little too late. 2-1. Verona gets a big, big win in this one to keep their hopes to maybe potentially make that top 7. I don't know how likely it is, but that would be really good for them if they could. Not the sexiest game of football you'll ever see, but an interesting one still because Verona gets a big upset over Atalanta, who've been dropping form lately. So, Joe, what were your thoughts on this match, as well as kind of Atalanta's drop in form?
So Verona have been shockingly, what's the word I'm looking for?
Good is good.
They've been shocking, this season. Like they've had some good results against some big teams. Atalanta have been poor at home lately.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really much of a surprise to me that they drop points. Um but I wasn't expecting a Verona win. I'll be totally honest with that. For what I
Mm-hmm.
remember watching, it was pretty scruffy. It was pretty shambolic, like across the field. Atalanta had some nice passages of play, but their shots were pretty easily saved.
Mhm.
Verona as well. If I recall, I think that the Ceccherini goal wasn't that originally called offside,
It
and then they
was,
checked
yeah.
it.
It was offsides, and then they checked it, and everybody was like just holding their breath and like, "Hey!"
And I think that was also like the biggest proponent of that goal was Diego Simeone, if I remember correctly. He kind of crossed the ball over
Yeah.
to Ceccherini, who got it in there, which was, I mean,
You mean Giovanni Simeone?
yeah, I said Diego, didn't I? That was
Yes, you
bad.
did.
Man, showing my age. But yeah, Giovanni Simeone, uh, kind of, whether it's a cross or a shot, you don't exactly know, but all you
Yeah,
know is that it got to Ceccherini and it got into the back of the net. But that Coop Miner's own goal,
it was weird.
you got to give credit to Illich on that one. I feel like, because he started that whole
He
simple
did.
1-2, and it I feel like that is the huge difference between the style of Atalanta and the style of Verona. Atalanta's all about charging the net, battling it quick, like getting possession back in their half and going forward very quickly with all of those, with that trident that they have, with Zapata in the middle. And Verona was all about trying to get those little passes in, and Illich kind of succeeded in that. And I mean, we all know that Atalanta aren't exactly the best defensively, so they kind of
Yeah,
opened them up there, and that turned out to be the deciding goal for that tie then. So
yeah,
yeah, it's not surprising. I think it says a little bit more about um, Atalanta and where they're at. I think that they're struggling and they can't exactly get the monkey off their back. So we'll see how they finish the rest of the season.
I think that's a great point. And something you mentioned was the style of play. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that the coach of Verona right now, the manager, is the former assistant to Pirlo. So do you
Here
think,
we go.
and this is me speculating, do you think him sitting a year, or not sitting, but seeing a year at how Pirlo managed, and then taking those concepts and kind of tinkering with them and creating his own style for Verona, kind of helped him to create his own coaching style and not perfect it per se, but kind of get it to a point where it can take a team that maybe doesn't have the top players, but have good middle of the run players and make some quality out of it on the field. Do you think that's the case? Do you think he took a Pirlo system and kind of made it his own?
No, I think that the reverse is kind of what happened. I think
Okay.
because Tudor was a coach before Pirlo was. Tudor actually coached in the Croatian league for Hajduk Split, and I think he also coached Dynamo Zagreb.
Look at
I
Joe
could be
pulling out the
wrong on that.
facts. I love it.
I could be wrong about that one, but I think he won a cup for Hajduk Split.
Wow.
Um, so he was already,
Established.
in the game. He came over with Pirlo. Um, I think that he was already an assistant coach here for whatever reason. I can't remember.
Okay.
But he became a part of Pirlo's team, and I think that he helped Pirlo iron out his system and how it was going to work. And, but anytime you kind of collaborate with somebody, you inevitably learn something. So I'm not going to say that he didn't learn anything from Pirlo. I'm sure he did, because
Mm-hmm.
that was probably, it was until he became a head coach at Verona, it was his, like, that was his biggest position. Not
Yeah.
knocking Hajduk Split, but Serie A is different.
Yeah.
So
Juventus is
yeah,
different.
Juventus is different. So yeah, I think he helped Pirlo more than Pirlo helped him in that sense. And I think that he always had these ideas, but
Okay.
he never had the first team to kind of run with it. So now we're seeing it in Serie
Okay. Throw my deal right out the window. I clearly am not a student of the game like Joe is.
A.
Joe is clearly a student of the game. The fact
No,
that
I love Tudor.
he pulled these teams out of his. You wait, what?
I loved Igor Tudor when he was a player at Juve. So like I've been
Shows how much I
a
know. I don't
fan of
remember
his.
Tudor as a player. I didn't even know he played.
Oh yeah, Yeah, he
So,
was a defender for Juventus. He was amazing.
I mean, definitely showing your age now, Joe, for
Yep,
sure.
for
Because
sure.
I barely remember the early 2010s, let alone what you're talking about. But we'll move on. I think you made some great points, and I really love Illich as a player. I think he's really, really talented. I think they got
Hmm.
a really strong player in Illich, and whether they keep him or maybe end up selling him in the future, I think he's got a lot of potential as a player. Um, Last game we'll get into today's Coppa Italia match with Inter smacking the living you know what out of AC Milan today. I don't think they left any room for any doubt in a 3-0 victory. The first, let me pull up the game right now. I'm trying to pull up the stats in front of me. So obviously 3-0. The aggregate was 3-0 in the total tie of the match because the first one was 0-0 draw and this one was 3-0, a double for Lautaro Martinez, and then the nail in the coffin, proverbial nail in the coffin was Robin Gosens with the 82nd minute finish off a great pass across the middle from Brozovic. Just seemed like that Milan just stopped defending at that point because Kalulu, I think it was Kalulu, was very late to that ball. He was like sitting right behind Gosens, and he just let the pass get right in front of him instead of doing anything. So, Joe, I need to ask you. With Milan getting 19 shots and 6 on goal and Inter with only 10 with 4 on target, I mean, that's an extremely efficient percentage of goals scored for shots taken. Um, so is Inter, do you think Inter can win the Coppa Italia? And two, does this help bring the confidence into the domestic league, into Serie A, and help them make a push to win the league?
I mean, Inter is the team. You know,
Yeah.
despite them not being first in the league, they are still probably the strongest team on paper.
Mhm.
You can't deny that. What was your original question, Cliff? If I want to make sure I hit all those points.
So the original question was how impressive was I think this is my first question. I already forgot what I asked, but the
Their
the
shooting
shooting
percentage
efficiency,
and
how impressive is that compared to Milan's, not atrocious, but they got 19 shots and 6 on target. So what was the difference in terms of efficiency? What was wrong? Like what was essentially what went right for Inter shooting wise? And then the other two were, can they win Coppa Italia and can they win the league with this confidence going forward?
right. Okay, so I think that the biggest thing was that Milan were throwing so many guys forward, it left a lot of room open at the back.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it doesn't matter. So long as you have that one guy who can shoot the ball on the net, it could go in.
Yeah.
It was a night to forget for Mike Magnan as well.
Yeah.
He was. I mean, the first Lautaro goal was a beauty. As much as I hate him, it was a beautiful goal, and he had another great goal as well. Those were
Yeah.
two very very tough goals
He picked a
uh,
hell of a
to
time to get
score
out of
in.
his drought.
Yeah, I know. But I don't think that it speaks to how poor Milan were. I think yeah, were they not clinical enough? Sure. Yeah, you could make that argument. But if you watch the game, like I said, they had so many guys forward that it just left a lot of room open at the back.
Mm-hmm.
And, Inter has those players that can hurt you on the counter. So
100%.
yeah, that's just, I think that was pretty much the tale of the game. I also think that it was kind of, and I think that we'll touch on this at some point, but that goal that got disallowed, I'm still scratching my head over that one. There was a goal that
But
Benacer
Benacer,
scored that got disallowed, and I'm still wondering why. Like if there was obstruction involved, because they're saying that I don't remember if it was Kalulu or Tamori. I think it was Kalulu
I
that
believe
was
it was
offside.
Kulu. Yeah,
That
and
was
then
offsides,
yeah,
and
sorry to interrupt. I was gonna say I saw on TV. I
no, go
know
for it.
Marco had asked there on the CBS coverage. Marco Messina had asked the refs. I forget the name. I apologize for forgetting the name, but the ref analyst about the call, and he was saying something along the lines of it didn't seem like the player was obstructing the play. It didn't seem like they were affecting the play at all.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. I didn't stick around to see what the ref said, which was stupid on my part. But
So
it's an interesting call because we'll get to this later. But consistency again seems like an issue.
Yep. So, yeah, I think anytime you lose to your biggest rival,
Yeah.
it's going to hurt. And this was a big marginal, like a very big
Yeah.
win.
There was really
So,
besides that one goal, there was really no evidence to say, Milan should have won this game. It was really all Inter.
I mean, they had their opportunities. They like Leao's had a couple opportunities,
Yeah.
but it's they just at the end of the day they just weren't clinical enough with their opportunities. Could the game have changed with that goal?
Hmm.
Maybe. I think that it would probably be a stretch. But it's just that's tough. It just showed that Inter still have fight left in them until the end of the season,
Yeah.
and I think that whoever plays them in the Coppa Italia final, I think that they'll still be the favorites.
Yeah, 100%. Great points from Joe again. Now we're gonna get to a very special segment. I'm gonna coin these terms that people gave me. We're gonna call it the Cappuccino Time with Joe Cappuccino.
Oh
And
boy.
every time we have you on, we're gonna call it Cappuccino Time. And I think from now on, I'm gonna brew a decaf cappuccino when we talk, and we'll both do our little, from across the room, we'll do our little ching ching with our
No
cappuccinos.
cappuccino afternoon. Okay, Cliff?
I know it's not.
Not
I
an
know it's not
afternoon.
typical. I know
It's a
it's not usually
rule.
typical to have cappuccinos
It's
in the afternoon.
a
I know.
sacred rule.
I know, but we're not in Italy. We're not in Italy to enforce that rule. The
That's an
places we can.
excuse.
It's a good excuse. It's a good excuse. We're not in Italy. They're not going to arrest me for it. So we're going to call it cappuccino time. I'll bring a cappuccino decaf on the show because I don't want to be up all night jumping off the walls. People already know how hyper I am, so I don't need to be bouncing off the walls when I'm doing the show. So we'll get some of the fun questions out first, and then we'll dig deeper into the more serious questions. So Joe, we got from our girl Lex. We love Lex. She's one of our team members. She's awesome. Go follow her content. She does the women content as well as doing the UVA coverage with us. Best bald manager all time. Joe, give me that. You seem like the authority on that. So let's get your
Ooh,
thoughts.
ooh. I think I did an entire thread on this.
You did. You did. That's probably what she's referencing.
I'm trying to even remember who. I'm so old. I
I
forgot
think you said
who I had
Conte.
as number one. No, he was definitely bottom tier. The worst of the worst. But
Zidane up there, right?
currently, I think Zidane was probably my number one. I want to say, Zidane was my number one ball manager. Like
Okay.
he's iconic in
Yeah.
every way. But in
Mhm.
all seriousness, I think that the best bald manager right now it'd be Italiano. Like you can't go wrong.
Yes. I
Like,
love
yeah,
it.
you
Even though
you
it's
gotta love.
cappuccino time, I'm going to give my thoughts on it too. Joe was 100% right. It's Vincenzo Italiano. He is
He's
the
great.
best ball manager of all time and currently better than that Pep Fraudiola
Pep
and
Guardiola,
Zinedine
man.
Zidane or whatever his name is, Zinedine Zidane. Whatever the hell, he's got 5 Z's in his name. So
Respect Zidane.
I respect the player. I'm not respecting the coach at this moment in time. Um, but yeah, Italiano is the best ball manager, as said by myself and the bald authority, Joe Cappuccino. And that's not a slight. He has a very beautiful bald head, so we're gonna stick with that. The next one, the late question came in. Do you use product? Do you use oil? Do you use any sort of product in your hair or in your lack
I
of hair?
do. I do. I actually use this I forget it's called Mountain Man.
Mountain Man.
Um yeah, it's called
Okay.
Mountain Man. It's Mountain Man bald wax. And you just put a little on and it's beautiful.
Please, somebody
It feels
Photoshop
amazing.
Joe with like short shorts hiking up a mountain. Please, somebody do that. That'd be the
I
greatest
think
thing.
it's called Mountain Man. I could be wrong.
Please, Mountain Man, sponsor my boy Joe. Needs that corporate sponsorship.
I love that. I love it though. It's great.
That's
It's great
awesome.
if you're bald. It's perfect.
That's awesome. When you have a product that you love, it really just makes a difference in kind of your routine and what you do. So another question is another not serious question. It ties into the cappuccino time. Do you really know how to make a proper cappuccino, Joe?
I do. I do, but I cheat a little bit because I don't have an espresso machine that can steam the milk for you.
Oh my
So I
lord.
have to actually like heat it up on a pot, like
Okay, you know what though?
in a
That's old
cup.
school. I respect it.
Yeah, it's what you got to do. And then once it, you don't want it to you obviously don't want to boil milk, but
Yeah,
you don't want it to simmer. You want a little bit below a simmer,
yeah.
and then I take a little bit of that and I'll put a little bit of it in a French press. And if you
Ooh,
whisk it a little bit, it froths it up. So then that's what goes in there.
Madon. I
Yeah,
like that.
it comes out
That
nice.
sounds good. That's old school. Joe is old school, man. He's 30 going on 56. I love it so much. On my I like to make a cappuccino, and people are gonna kill me for this. I'm lactose intolerant, so I use oat milk, which actually froths really well if people like alternative milks. I know all of my AJC members are gonna beat the living crap out of me the next time in the chat when
Yeah,
I
you're gonna hear
make.
about it.
Oh, I'm gonna hear about it. But when I used to do it, I used to obviously have regular milk, and I before I was, before I had that, I do regular milk. I cannot do the designs though. That is like another
That's hard.
level. That's another level of amazing. Like I tried to do it one time. It's like such an art. The fact that people
Hmm.
can do like freaking Pikachu's and cappuccinos and make hearts and leaves and all that stuff is ridiculous. Um, but yes, we will be having decaf cappuccinos next time we're on the show. I don't care about your stupid rule,
Sure.
Joe. The stupid rule that we only follow in Italy, which I haven't been to Italy yet, but that's another story for another day. Um, Next question. What's the deal with the pineapple pizza, Joe? This is from our boy Lou. What's the thing with the pineapple pizza?
Do you want to know the whole story or
No,
like
it's gonna take too long. Give us the abbreviated version.
so I actually hate pineapple on pizza.
Good.
It should not exist. It's awful.
Okay.
But for whatever reason, somebody thought it would be funny to convince everybody and like ingrain it into Twitter's algorithm that I like pineapple on pizza. I know who it is,
Not gonna name
but
names.
I'm not going to name names. He knows who he is too, and it's just been perpetuated for years at this point. So I kind of just have to live with it.
Okay. Okay. We'll leave it at that. But on some serious, actually, one last one. This will be the last non-serious one. Do you miss the Joe
Non-serious one.
Cappuccino NFTs? This is from Seb.
No, you want to know what I really miss? I miss I miss all the NFTs that we had at one point in Calcio Twitter. That was
Mar-
peak. That
wait,
was
wait,
peak
which one?
Calcio
The
Twitter.
the
It was
NFTs
like
with like the
there was like
faces?
Martino. There
Oh,
was like
Martino
Martino
NFT.
NFTs.
Okay.
We had a bunch of these
Somebody
NFTs,
made an
and
NFT of me.
they
I
were
will
great.
not release it. But somebody made an NFT of me and Martino's face combined. It is terrifying. It will scare children. Um, but
But
we will not show that to anybody.
and if Calcio NFT Twitter
Peak. Yeah, it
was
was
great.
peak. It was freaking hilarious. But now to the serious questions. Lou's serious question was thoughts on Italian football overall and the stubbornness to change, and how would you change it, Joe?
First of all, Lou doesn't ask any serious questions
Love you, Lou.
because he's not a serious guy.
This is
So
true.
there's that. But to answer his question, we've had this. We've had. I know I've talked to Lou about this before. We've had a brief conversation about it, but my thought on youth in Italy and what needs to change with the game. Um, it's complicated. It's very very complicated. If you look at the culture in Italy, you know, boys in general are they're the prize of any family. You know, they get coddled, they get babied, up until they're like 40. It's crazy. I think that's part of the culture, and then that translates into the football because you know a youngster will look like he's ready, but he'll never get that shot,
Yeah.
or he'll have that one good game, and then
Rovella
he'll have
Hive.
no, you take that back. He'll have that one, like a youngster will have that one good game,
Mhm.
and then a series of bad ones, and everyone will be like, "Oh, well, what happened? You know,
Yeah.
like what? Where was this? Where was the air of Andrea Pirlo? You know what I mean?"
Yeah.
So I think that there's a lot of that happens as well. Um, but it's a very very There's no one solution to like fix the Italian game.
Yeah.
But I think we honestly, you got to look at what the EPL did with their league. Like, look,
Hmm.
Italy was on top of the world at one point. Like
Yeah.
the
Mid
late
2000s.
80s, the 90s into the early thousands, it was all Serie A, and then it kind of spiraled into the EPL. The EPL took a lot of plays from the NFL playbook to make a successful league,
Yeah.
and you see the fruits of their labor. It takes some time, but I think that the Italian game needs to take some of those risks. Play those young players. Like really develop that talent. Be willing to experiment with other things. Like
Yeah.
you want to go as far as you can in Europe, but you got to take some risks. And
Hmm.
it like I said, there's no one size solution. But I think it all starts with how youth players are implemented into teams. I think there
Yeah.
should be a rule saying that
Hmm.
you need to play these players. You need to play like I'll just make up a random number. Like you need to play four uh,
U23s.
you like U23 players um, in it, like at least four of them need to be in your starting lineup or something like that.
It wouldn't help Juve because they already have plenty
No,
of U23 players.
no, but like you
It would
got to
help.
give them the shots. You
Yeah.
have to give them the shots. Or else you will get stuck in the cycle of them never being ready,
Yeah.
and you have to fail. You have to be willing to fail.
Hmm.
These, like the big clubs, especially Juve, Inter, Milan, all of those clubs are so afraid of failure because they want to win now.
Yeah.
Especially Juve. I can wholeheartedly say that that's Juve's
They've
case.
they've only done it when it's a sure thing, like an
Yeah.
absolutely 100% foreign. Not, I guess not. Well, I guess foreign basically in most senses, except for Chiesa. Vlahovic being a foreign player, even though in the league, De Ligt being a foreign player from another league. Like these are guys who are basically like, whether you believed it or not at the time, they were basically the closest thing to a sure thing that you'll ever have in a youth player, and they bought them for an exorbitant amount of money for both players.
Hmm.
Whereas with like a Fagioli or a Rovella, who Rovella is getting time at Genoa, but it's a lower team. He's not getting a top tier experience on a top side like a Juventus, and Fagioli's in Serie B right now. Whereas you have PSG, Bayern Munich playing guys who are 19, 18, in some cases 17 or 16, and same in the Prem. So it's just really frustrating to see these teams who have an abundance of talent. Bayern Munich has an abundance of talent, and they played a kid named Musiala at 17 years old, and he played really well. He had really good games, but he also had games where he really was kind of invisible. So you have to be willing to let these kids have a little bit of growing pains if they're showing a
Hmm.
ton of potential. If they're like on the cusp, I kind of understand. If they're not showing all the potential in the world, you want to kind of let them develop. That's fine. But if it's a kid who you're like, oh, this is going to be our star for the next 20 years, give them a shot. Don't wait till they're 25 to play them, because that's not helping them develop. That's just stunting their growth and, prolonging the time that they get to really show their potential.
Hmm.
Um, so I 100% wholeheartedly agree with you. I 100% agree with everything you said. It needs to be a systematic change. It needs to start from, from the youth academies all the way up. It needs to really change with the management too. I think Italiano, De Zerbi, coaches like that, Dionisi, those are guys who are not on the top teams, but they're starting to change a little bit of the mentality of the league, of giving younger players opportunities, um, you know, internally too. Like Castrovilli was a young, I mean, I guess it wasn't under Italiano, but you get the point. Castrovilli got opportunities at a young age. Vlahovic got an opportunity. Chiesa, these guys need to get more opportunities at the top level. But we could go all day talking about the
Hmm.
youth academies and the stubbornness of Italian football in general. But we'll go on to the next question from Dante, who asks a Juve question. What's your ideal Juve transfer window and the views on Del Piero regarding with management? I don't know the whole story there. Joe, we'll go with Del Piero topic first. Can you enlighten me a little bit about that? Because I'm not as familiar with that.
So there are rumors abound that him returning to the stadium this past weekend wasn't a mistake. That there were talks that he might be part of the board. He might have a board position lined up for him. I don't know if I exactly agree with that. Just because he hasn't had that kind of experience, you can say, yeah, he was a phenomenal player. He was my favorite player of all time. I don't see that. I honestly just don't see that for him.
Mm.
Even though he's the club legend, I don't see uh, a board position for him like that. It would be kind of like
Yeah.
him. He would be like the Nedved.
Yeah.
I think that works for. I think it works for Nedved. I can't
Does it
quite
though?
I can't quite articulate why it works for Nedved more than it works for Del Piero. I just don't see him there. Would I if he took it? Would I support him? Yeah.
Mhm.
But I don't know. It doesn't, something about that doesn't quite sit right with me.
I agree. I think that, in my opinion, I feel like it's almost like taking a too high of a step forward. Like, so I know he just got his coaching license, right, recently,
Mm-hmm.
with the class of like a few other former
Him
players.
and De Rossi.
Him and De Rossi, exactly. So I feel like it's almost like he's skipping a step. I feel like he's going to the board, and then if he ever takes a management position or coaching position, that'd be like a step backwards because he's trying to change roles. I really think he should get his experience as a manager because I think he could be a phenomenal manager. Because I mean, I say that now, but you never know. With Pirlo, he was given his first season. Well, you know what? We won't go down that road because we all know how
Let's
that
not go
ended.
down. No,
But
let's not do that.
I think when you're a former player, you see the game differently. I think we can all agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be interesting to see him get a management opportunity. It just feels weird. Also, with the kind of the way that things ended with Juventus, obviously a lot of people do not like the way that was handled, probably including yourself and myself. Um, but we'll see what happens. I think it's a really interesting thing. I'd love to have him back in the club in some capacity. It'd be amazing. But we'll go to the next topic. Ideal Juve transfer window. Do you mind if I go first, Joe? Because I've been wanting to
Yeah,
talk about this for a while.
sure.
Sergei Milinkovic-Savic. Got to be number one on the list. In my opinion, got to be the number one on the list. Second on the list, a class left winger. And a person I have been preaching. I don't watch the league religiously because I don't get coverage of it. So unfortunately, I can't watch as much as I'd like. A player named Terrier, left wing for Stade Rennais, really good left winger. Last time I checked, he had 16 goals in the league as a winger. I think he had like 6 assists or something. Phenomenal left winger. I think fits what Juve need because they are going to be playing a 4-3-3. I think they need a true left winger. They need a center mid, and they need at least another left back and probably another center back as well. So probably Sergei Milinkovic-Savic. I like Terrier as the left wing. I really love a player like Mukiele, if you've heard of him. I love him so much. One of the
Mm-hmm.
wings, one of the wing back positions, one of the outside back positions. And then honestly, Rudiger, I would not be mad at getting him, just not the price tag that he's asking for right now. So I kept it short and sweet. Joe, give me your thoughts on that. What would you do?
On that transfer, or in terms of
On
what
what
I
yours
would
was,
do,
and
like
if you hate mine or
mine.
not.
Um, I mean, who wouldn't want Milinkovic Savic?
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of how much Lazio want for him, and I shouldn't actually say Lazio. How much Lutito wants for him, because he
Yeah.
will
He
make
will
Juve
penny and
pay.
dime you. He'll nickel and dime everything
He
out of
will
you.
make Juve pay so much money for him
Yeah.
just to pry him away. But I do think his future is at Juve. Who else? We're gonna need left back. The guy who I'm thinking of is Grimaldo from Benfica.
Love it.
If you see him play, he's a great left back. He's also young. Um,
Oh, Lodi. Lodi was a player I was thinking of who's on Atletico Madrid.
oh yeah, Lodi. Yeah. We're gonna need some midfield reinforcements. Honestly, take your pick. I'm sure whoever would come in would probably be better than who we'd have going out. So,
Rabbi,
yeah.
no.
What else? I'm not 100% sold on wingers because, yeah, you can say that we're going to be playing a 4-3-3, but
Yeah.
Allegri doesn't like out and out wingers. So you will not. So if you're going to buy out and out wingers, I think that you're kind of just wasting money in that sense.
I mean, Chiesa is an out and out winger though. Oh, but that was under
True,
Pirlo.
but we saw what happened with him under Allegri. It's kind of
Yeah,
he's kind of
that's true.
stunted a little bit. I would like Fratesi. I would like Fratesi at
I
Juve.
like it.
Yeah, you
Let me,
know, I
let
would.
me ask
Oh,
you.
if you want a winger who I think could also be like a left mid, but could even be
Mhm.
slot in the middle. I believe Dominic Balzai. I forget which team in the Bundesliga he
Okay.
plays for right now, but yeah, he's incredibly talented. He would probably fetch a pretty penny, but he is immensely talented. I would think
So,
that he would be one to watch.
so you gave us your list of kind of short list of players. Where do you think the budget stands on how much we can actually spend? Because I think our cap, what I'm thinking right now, and this could be really generous considering how much we spent on Vlahovic, but with the injection of money, I'm thinking probably 100 million, maybe 110, maybe I think is our ceiling because they've talked about spending big money on a midfielder. So I'm thinking that's at least 50 to 70 million off the bat.
I think that we're going to need to get rid of some contracts before we do that. I don't think that it's quite a matter of how much we can spend. It's how much we can offer in wages because we have a lot of guys on
Yeah.
really big contracts.
Yep.
So we're going to need to see how that plays out first. I've heard mutterings that Alexandro is probably going to be leaving, so
Get rid of him. See ya.
that'll be a contract gone. Rabiot, whether he stays or he goes, um,
Big contract.
that would be a big contract to lift as well.
Then Ramsey still technically being on the team.
Ramsey's still technically on the books, and he will be coming back, so that needs to get sorted out as well. So it's not. I'm still skeptical about how much money we're going to drop this summer, but the pragmatist in me says not that much.
Really?
I would
So
be.
give me a number. Give me a number, Joe.
I would be astonished if we dropped more than 80 million.
Okay. Okay. I think
I
that's
would.
still a
That's just
fair.
me.
I think that's a fair
Because
figure.
we spent so much in January.
Yeah.
I think we're going to need to be a little bit more economic in the summertime, but who knows?
I
It
think it's
also
a
all
big.
depends on how we finish the Coppa Italia and where we end up at the end of the season.
I think that's a big factor because if, God forbid we don't make top four, that changes a lot of things. So we will shift a little bit from that. Dante, thank you so much for that question. That's an awesome question. We got. I also forgot to mention a few names. Juve SoCal was the one who mentioned about the cappuccino question, which I loved. And Joe Uccello asks,
Mm-hmm.
should Juve go after a Zidane or another manager? And take your
Oh,
pick on managers.
well, thank you for your question from one Joe to another.
Joe's
No,
great.
Joe Cello's he's a good dude. Um, I I think it is written that Zidane will end up at Juve at one point. I think that that's a given. I think it's going to
Okay.
happen. What I
What makes
want,
you say that though? What makes you say? I'm curious.
because of his career that he had at Juve, he became a man at Juve, and he still has a lot of love for the club. Like,
Okay.
yeah, he's sure you can say that he's a Real Madrid legend and stuff, but he's also a Juve legend too. Um, but he's gone on the record before saying that he would like to coach in Serie A, and that he loves Juventus and he loves the city. Would I want him or another coach? Honestly, it would be a tie between him and Italiano.
Yeah.
It's that, and that's really tough
Yeah.
because I think Zidane has. I think that Italiano has a better style,
Mm-hmm.
but I think Zidane has
The
more
vision.
top. he has more top quality attributes that you need
Okay.
at a club like Juve. So I think that kind of knocks him that kind of makes him the prime candidate for to be a future coach. And I think that he would be the kind of guy that you would want for a rebuild. Um, I,
Yeah.
Allegri's not that guy, so
You're not that guy, Max. Not that
it,
guy.
I love Max. I respect Max,
Yeah.
but he's just not the kind of guy to rebuild a club.
Great manager Allegri, but not the timing to have him. And I was a very big, I was one of the big supporters of Zidane as the next coach when we had that vacancy after Pirlo, and I was convinced we would make the move for Zidane because I thought that was the move going forward. I thought that
Mm-hmm.
would set us up for a couple years to come. But they obviously decided to go a different direction and kind of backtrack a little bit with Allegri. For me, like you said, for me, it's either Zidane or Italiano. It really comes down to who's available first. Because I feel like Italiano is being prepped for the Juve job at this point, in my opinion. I just feel like it's a matter of one or two more seasons under Allegri, and then they pull the trigger on Italiano. And if Zidane's not available, I think, or say Italiano gets picked up and then Zidane the next season is available, I think he ends up at a PSG or he takes the national team job for France, one of those, and then later on ends up at Juventus at some point. Um, it's just such an interesting thing, very interesting thing in terms of Juventus's mindset, in terms of their managers. We have another Juve question. It's a great question, Joe. Thank you so much for asking it. Calcio guys asked us tops and flops for Juve players this season.
Oh boy,
So
all
I'll go.
flops.
Oh,
No,
all
no, I'm
flops.
kidding.
All flop. Okay, I was gonna say,
No,
wow.
no,
I'll
no.
give a
I'll
few.
be serious about it. I'll be
I'll give a
serious
few
about it.
off top of my head. So far, I mean the obvious flops: Rabiot and Sandro, and then
Mm-hmm.
probably the bright spots have been Delit. Um, Early on, he was a flop, but recently Tech has actually been a top. I think he's really performed well, all things considered. So yeah, Delit, it's really tough. Probably, I mean, Locatelli hasn't been super impressive. I wouldn't call him a top. Honestly, when he has played, McKennie when he played was top in my opinion. He was playing really, really well. He was playing higher than his standard. I think he was playing even better than what we thought he could be. Better than other people thought he could be. I always knew he could be good. I was a McKennie choo-choo train, if you guys know that reference. Before his injury, Chiesa was a flop, and I think it's fair to say that. I don't think that's unfair to say. I think he was a flop at the time, but I think that's also partially on Allegri. Um, and I think so far Vlahovic has been top. I don't think he's been a flop. All things considered, he's not going to score a ton in Allegri's system. So I think for the opportunities he's gotten with minimal service, I think he's been top. So Joe, I'll hand it off to you. Give me some of your thoughts.
No, I think I'd agree with a lot of what you said. Um, who else has been? I think that was a little harsh on Locatelli. I think that he's for out of all the midfielders, I think that he's been top. I think McKennie's been top too. They're definitely the two big guys
Mm-hmm.
for the Juve midfield. Vlahovic has been top,
Yeah.
just because like even if you don't see him scoring the goals, he's still getting involved and he's still driving the game forward.
Mm-hmm.
Um, who else? I mean, Dybala's been
Oh yeah, Dybala's been top.
Dybala's been top. He's
Yeah.
been our best player. Who else? Yeah, I mean the team itself has
Zakaria.
been
I want to know Zakaria since he's been here. Is he a top or a flop since he's been at Juve? I know he's had
that's
limited
tough.
time.
That's tough because he had a little bit of an injury spell, and I think he puts in some good shifts.
Yeah.
Um, but he's not a bust. I don't think
Yeah,
so.
I don't agree.
He's coming
Yeah.
in for he came in at you know the halfway point of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Um, where the midfield's already our weakest point. I think that he did help. Um, but like I said, he had those like an injury problem, so that set him back. I think that he was doing better, and then that happened. That just seems to happen for you
Yeah.
know a lot of players.
I think
But
the issue that we can only name maybe a couple, like only on one hand, how many tops we have is an issue. I think the fact that we can only
Hmm.
truly name like I'm struggling to name other tops, but if we only truly have 3 or 4 tops in that, like in terms of performances overall in the season, that's a problem. Because
And yeah, oh yeah,
at
100%.
least half your squad should be in that category of having a good season. I mean,
If
Quadrado
you're,
has been like right in the middle because he's had high highs and he's had low lows. So
yep.
he's just too inconsistent at this point to really give him a fair rating. So he's like in the gray area.
I think
But I think that's
Morata's been top. I think that would be fair. Morata's been reliable.
okay.
And he kind of get, even though he hasn't been scoring the goals. He kind of draws away those defenders to give Dusan those opportunities, and
Yeah.
he's been willing to play that role. So I give him props for that. You know,
Yeah.
he's
100%.
not playing in a striker role. He's
Yeah.
kind of playing in a like the Mandzukic ish role.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll give Morata props for that for sure. But like you
That's
said,
fair.
most of the team has just been on the down,
Yeah.
so it's the common denominator is Allegri. But
Yeah, unfortunately, kind of the team moves how Allegri does, so it is what it is. But Joe, that just about wraps it up for our show. Man, do you have anything to say to the people? This has been a really fun time.
no, I thank you for having me on, Cliff. It's always fun chopping it up on here with you.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself, man. It's such a pleasure to have you on. It's always fun. And you're such a good sport about so many things. So thanks for answering all the questions. It's been a good time. So just a reminder, everybody, we have the our All Juve cast has a pre-match show tomorrow morning, and then that's we'll probably have a post-match show the next day. So a lot to look forward to for All Juve cast content. As soon as this drops, if you guys could please drop a like and a sub, that'd be greatly appreciated. We appreciate everybody showing love. Everybody have a great rest of the night and have a great productive week. We'll see you guys next time on Stoppage Time. See ya.